From the National Weather Service in Raleigh, it's Nick Petro with your routine weekly briefing for Central North Carolina, the Monday edition, covering the period today through Sunday this week, the 24th through the 30th of August, 2020. All right. So here's our weather pattern, our upcoming weather pattern for the week. The main story for today is patchy light rain, and a few rain showers will be possible today and Tuesday, and we can thank that to a moisture plume that extends south to tropical storm Marco. And I'll see if I could show that here on a radar satellite image. But if you look at the rain that's occurring, the light rain, very light rain, I'll add, across the Piedmont of North Carolina, and you trace the cloud shield and the radar band, you'll find that eventually it connects up with Marco. So that's, again, not a direct impact of Marco, but in other words, that plume would still be there whether Marco was there or not. It's just that it happens to connect to it. But anyway, that plume and that moisture, the rain showers will slowly move across our region over the next day or two. Then things will turn dry during the mid to late week period, but when it's dry and sunny, that oftentimes leads to hot conditions with the air mass that we have over the region. So the main weather story come middle to late week will be hot, will be the heat. So, and speaking of the tropics, Marco and Laura will both make landfall on the Gulf Coast, central or western Gulf Coast, depending on where they ultimately end up. So no imminent or direct threats to central North Carolina from either of those two. However, the remnants of Laura, once it eventually makes landfall, the remnants of Laura will eventually get merged into a cold front and a low pressure system over the Ohio Valley. And then that front, coupled with Laura's remnant moisture, is expected to move across the Carolinas either late this week, probably Friday night, or Saturday. And that'll result in increased rain chances during that time. And on these maps here, you could see all the features there. Let me see if I can get my spotlight here. And there's Marco on the map here on the Today panel. That's just going to gradually drift westward. And then Laura over western Cuba will eventually, in the midweek pattern, be approaching the Louisiana-Texas border. And then eventually will lift north across the lower Mississippi, the Tennessee Valley, and eventually the Ohio Valley. And you can see right here in the lower left panel here, that L, that's the leftovers of Laura. And then the moisture will gradually just drift eastward. And finally, we'll have this cold front that sweeps through that should sweep all of that out. So anyway, that's the way the pattern's shaping up. When we look at how much rain are we going to end up from all of this, well, basically patchy light rain and rain showers, again, will be possible today and Tuesday. That's associated with a fairly deep moisture plume that extends down into the Gulf of Mexico. That'll move across the region, and rainfall amounts, all in all, are going to be pretty light during this time. So maybe a ½ inch at most, if you see any rain at all. And then it'll turn dry during the midweek period. Look at that Wednesday. I know it's kind of confusing. Thursday and Friday, it shows us kind of painted green there. But if I separated out Thursday from Friday, you'd see Thursday would be mostly dry as well. But since that's a 2-day forecast, we do have Friday's rain depicted on there. So dry during the midweek period. And then, as I pointed out earlier, the remnants of Laura will eventually get drawn and merged into a low pressure cold front system over the Ohio Valley, and then that'll move through the Carolinas probably Friday night into Saturday, and then we'll have increased rain chances during that time. So that's what we're depicting there in the middle there. And then when you add it all up during the 7-day briefing period, most of central North Carolina will receive up to an inch of rain. That's not a whole lot. So that's good news, right? Because if you joined us last Thursday, remember I gave that flood outlook basically webinar that was attached to our Thursday briefing. And remember, we talked about how, the groundwater is very high. It's wet. The stream flows are very active right now. So the last thing we need is a lot of rain. And fortunately, I think for this next 7-day period, we're going to be in good shape with not getting a whole lot of rain. So we were slightly concerned back late last week, but those concerns fortunately have diminished with Marco and Laura now forecast to make landfall and dump its heaviest rain well to our west and southwest. All right, so but the hurricane season's far from over, so let's remind ourselves that we got a long way until the end of October, the end of November for that matter. So anyway, looking at the WPC's excessive rainfall outlook, the risk for isolated flash flooding should be confined, at least for the next 3 days, to areas well west of central North Carolina. Anyway, regardless, and I could leave this second bullet point on every single briefing that I do. Regardless, we should always be watchful for prolonged heavy downpours with any thunderstorm activity, because that could quickly result in isolated flooding of low spots. And, wet roads obviously can result in hydroplane concerns, so never drive through areas where water covers the roadway. All right. So, looking at the severe thunderstorm potential for days 1 through 3, we are highlighted in general thunder, which means really we're not expecting any severe thunderstorms. You can never rule it out in the warm season, but the odds are pretty slim that we'd see a severe thunderstorm today, Tuesday, or Wednesday. And then the slight or the marginal and slight risk areas are to our north, as you can see they're highlighted on these maps. So good shape in that regard for the next 3 days. Now let's look at the tropics. So of course we've got Marco, and there's the track for Marco gradually drifting westward. And then what about Laura? Laura's, Texas and Louisiana coastal landfall there. And then notice how, as it lifts to the north across the Mississippi Valley, then Tennessee Valley, then Ohio Valley, eventually all its moisture will get merged with the low pressure and cold front system, and that'll sweep across the Carolinas as we head into very late in the work week or on Saturday. So the key takeaway here is that central North Carolina may see some of the remnant rains from Laura, but that won't be until late this week or early weekend. Okay. The one thing I do want to draw your attention to is increasing heat later this week. I know, with the cloudiness today, that's kept temps kind of on the cooler side. We're not out of the heat season yet. Okay, the heat and humidity season is far from over as well. And I want to point out that given the air mass over us, all it takes is for the sun to come out for a couple hours, and you'll see temperatures, climbing well up into the 80s, upper 80s, even lower 90s come Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. So look how the temperature is forecast to climb into the low to mid 90s come midweek, maybe late week. So we want to keep that in mind. We do have a hazardous weather outlook that highlights the heat risk, and heat indices with these types of ambient air temperatures, given it's so humid, will easily eclipse 100. So definitely, the typical safety rules apply here for heat. All right, and I'll get to those in just a minute. The 8 to 14-day outlook looking to next week calls for above normal temps for central North Carolina, and perhaps a dry period for at least eastern North Carolina, but we'll see how that pans out. That kind of wraps up our weekly briefing for this Monday morning. Just to kind of wrap it all up, patchy light rain, showers will be possible today and Tuesday, thanks to that moisture plume that I mentioned, and that'll slowly move across our region. Dry and hot conditions expected for the mid to late week period. Look at those temperatures climbing up into the mid 90s for Wednesday and Thursday, even Friday. Keep in mind that Marco and Laura, well, obviously they're making some news now. Both of those will make landfall along the Gulf Coast, so no imminent or direct threats to central North Carolina from either of those two. However, we'll be keeping track of that remnant moisture, because when Laura tracks northward, eventually that moisture will get merged into a cold front and low pressure system over the Ohio Valley. And then that front coupled with Laura's remnant moisture is expected to move across the Carolinas either late this week or this weekend, resulting in increased rain chances during that time. But even so, we're only expecting rainfall amounts, up to maybe an inch. So So it's not going to produce a lot of rain, especially because it'll be moving pretty quickly. So that when that rain moves through our area late this week or early weekend, it's not going to stick around very long. It's just going to blow through. All right, so the hazards, heat indices of 1 to 105 are possible Thursday and Friday, maybe even approaching that on Wednesday. So during times of such heat, be sure to remain in air-conditioned places if possible. Avoid strenuous activities during the heat of the afternoon. Wear light clothing. Check on family members, neighbors. Drink plenty of fluids and never leave people or pets in a closed car. And then finally, on wet roads, whether it's today, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's late this week or weekend, whenever it rains, and anytime it rains, always slow down on wet roads to avoid hydroplaning. All right, so that wraps up our weekly briefing for Central North Carolina for this Monday, the 24th of August.